We are back in the black hole of real estate, and we're going to talk about navigating the sale and move over the holidays. So you're thinking that this might be the right time to make your move, even though it's the holidays and maybe the economy is not quite where you want it with inflation or interest rates, but it's just time to move and you're really looking forward to making it. And you're wondering, what is it that we can do to get the property on the market and sell and move over the holidays. And I think it's worth having a conversation about what it looks like, which things you're going to encounter along the way, and what adjustments you might have to make in order for this to work. You know, the first thing that we always talk about is having the house prepped and ready for sale. And if you are thinking of going on the market at this time, you want to make sure that the house is ready to go. In an unkept house or a cluttered house, one that needs painting, one that needs curb appeal, yard work, fixing, repairs, it's not going to be a solid offering at a time when people are looking for convenience, unless you aggressively price it to make it very, very compelling for somebody to come in and do the work at a time when people are just increasingly busy. It will attract the investors and the flippers if you price it aggressively, which might help you out to get an offer in there. And if a family or someone looking to actually occupy the home is also making an offer, that can make it attractive to them as well if there's a deal to be had and maybe they're handy or actually enjoy doing the work. It's going to come down to like 3 or 4 things. And of course, location is always the most important thing about a home. We just know that. The condition, always in control of the owner. You either kept it really nice or you didn't. Marketing, that's probably in control of the agent or broker that you choose. And of course, the 4th thing, if we're going to talk about it, is price. So we need to look at those 4 things when we're establishing the value proposition for the consumers, and how we're going to market the property and identify the right candidates to come buy it. So I've mentioned about getting the property ready to go and prepped. So I think we all know about the decluttering and taking things out and personal items. It's a great time if you're doing it to rent a storage room and bring a lot of your possessions over there and let that be the holding place between where you are and where you want to be. That will help out tremendously right off the jump. So get the big things out, get the small stuff going. If you're not going to wear every bit of your summer clothing in the off season, maybe get that packed away too. Thin out your closets, do as much as you can to get the place boxed up and out the door, so that way if you need to make a quick move, you actually can. Now the next thing I would say is, because it appears more spacious, it's going to help you in the cost per square footage calculation, that people kind of do the math in the air. When they're looking at a place, if it feels cluttered, it's going to feel small. And if it's open, it's going to feel big. So we want to have that appearance as well. Now, if you happen to move things and there's a shadow on the wall because you had a dresser up against it, and now there's 2 tones of paint, that could be an issue. And if you happen to be a smoker, and we come across this sometimes, you take down the mirror in the dining room, and then you see the outline of the mirror, bright white or really light color, much brighter than the wall around it. That's going to be an issue. Not every cleaner will remove that, and quite often, if you are a smoker, getting rid of the smoke smell and the staining, that's a bigger project than one might think. It's not as easy as spraying the wall and wipe and get clean, because smoke gets into all the fabrics, not just the carpet, but any window treatments, anything with the fabric, anything that might absorb into it, it's going to be affected by that. It could be like kitchen grease too. If you cooked a lot and it was got up into the hood, you probably need to clean the hood, the fan area above there. The area behind it, grease could get on it. It could slide underneath the stove. So there's cleaning things to use. Cooked a lot or smoked a lot, you got a little additional work to do, but I would want to be looking at these things before you get on the market, because what you really want over the holidays is to be, smelling apple and pumpkin pie or cookies baking, not old cooking grease, and certainly not smoke. So it almost seems trivial to bring this up, and yet we run into it like, oh, I had no idea, or I didn't notice the smell of smoke. I'm like, well, you know, if you can smell it outside the building before you go in the building, it might be a problem. So getting that house ready to go is super important. If you have big trees and they're over the top of the house, then you could very well have the sap from the trees staining the roof. And even if it was a newer roof, it could look discolored. So that's something to look at during this time of year. Pollen all year long and things. Pressure washing the house is almost always a good idea to take off whatever layers of film or stuff are on there. It might involve some painting. So if you have touch-up paint, that's a super good thing to do. And if you're taking pictures off the wall, which I absolutely recommend that you do, and depersonalize the house, filling in those nail holes or the screw holes, that's also a good thing for you to do. And again, the touch-up paint does wonders as long as it's blending in nicely and doesn't look like a touch-up hole paint. Something to think about. I've seen some really bad patch jobs out there, and I'm trying to make light of this a little bit almost because if your house is kitchen grease and hole patches and smells of smoke and the carpets are dirty and soiled and there's boot prints everywhere, it's going to look like a fixer-upper. And if you want to sell it as is, then price it accordingly, and someone will buy it. But when we're pricing at the top of the market and we have all these deficiencies or things that need to be done, this is what causes houses to linger on the market, especially during the holidays. So that's a few things about prepping the house and what the expectation might look like. Now, always be prepared to have the house shown at all crazy hours. I always say at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's not your house anymore until you go back to sleep tonight. Between 8 and 8, that's showing time, and it's got to be ready because you never know when the buyer is going to walk in that wants to buy the home. So always be prepped and ready. And I can't overstate that enough right now, is that it needs to be ready all the time. So if you're the sort of person that leaves dishes in the sink at night, then you're getting up early to get them out because no one wants to see dishes up to the ceiling when they go to look at a house. This kitchen is always got to look clean. Same with your refrigerator. It also needs to be clean and not sticky. So it's not a little. It's probably a lot of extra work for some people to have the house always ready to go. Now, if you are doing all the things that I've just mentioned and the property is still not selling, then a price adjustment is something that you want to look at if you have a desire to be moved by a specific date. Wait, if you can afford to wait, that's great. But also know that if you're in a market for 2 or 3 months with no price adjustment, you're stale in the market. Everybody's going to know that you're overpriced. If it's not selling, to me, almost everybody says if it didn't sell in the first 30 days, it's probably overpriced. It's not just this market. It's every market I've experienced in Florida for the last 20 years. And usually after about 30 days, the market's anticipating a 5% reduction. So keep that in mind, not just with your pricing, but as you move down, week by week and month by month. If it's not sold, the market's telling you something. If you're not getting showings and offers, the market is absolutely whispering in your ear, hey, your price and value are not in alignment. In other words, your price too high. So, give that some thought and be ready and prepared to make those adjustments. Let's suppose that you actually get the home under contract and now you're in that all-out, panic because you've got to find a house quickly. Were you pre-qualified, and did you get out there and preview some properties in advance or check out some open houses in neighborhoods? Are you studying the market and watching for whatever would make by a different seller to help line up your two sales, if that's what you're doing? The vast majority of people sell and buy at the same time when they move. If you're fortunate enough to buy the home in advance and then sell it at your leisure, fantastic. If you're going to sell it and temporarily move into a vacation rental for a month or two, that works too, or stay with family. The vast majority of people are trying to do it simultaneously. So just know, with the extra busyness of the holidays and the emotions that might go along with the holidays, adding the stress for moving also could put a few people to the breaking point. I want to make sure we're talking about this right now, so we don't get in a tough situation. If you are in a situation where you're getting down to the wire, just know for some sellers, they want to close by the end of the year for tax reasons. So if you're trying to find something to buy somewhere around November 1st or 15th, even through Thanksgiving, someone's going to get super motivated from the seller side if you're financing. And if you're cash, Hey, anytime in December, a cash offer closing before the end of the year with a little bit of a cushion, for a lot of sellers, that's really attractive because the taxes on top of that, waiting until January, might make it less advantageous for them. So think about that on the buy side. If you need to sell for any tax reason by December 31st, give yourself enough time where a finance buyer could actually buy the property. And I would suggest that you would want to be under contract if you're selling and want to close by December 31st, by November 15th, because you got several holidays that are going to get in the way. And a lot of people take vacation time that work for banks and title companies and things like that. So we want to make sure you have enough cushion to get it closed on time. The worst thing is you've got it set up to close on December 31st, and something's wrong and it pushes over just one more day, but it's a whole new tax year. And for some people, that's a critical, very just, it's a tough thing for them to swallow by missing it by one day. So I would really plan for these things and make sure you get ahead of it. It's absolutely doable to move during the holidays, and some of the best months in our brokerage history occurred in November, December over the last few years. There was a lot of activity. The people that are looking at homes over the holidays, they're serious because they could be doing anything else, going to parties and getting ready for the holidays, or just relaxing. So if they're out there during this time of year, there's some motivation in there. And if a market sees a property going on the market late October, November, December, there's a motivation there on the part of the seller. There's something going on there that both sides should be examined and investigated for good reason. This is absolutely a time when there's less people in the market, but the intent is much higher. So it's an interesting force multiplier that with less people active in the market, there's a very good chance of more sales because those are the motivated people. And I hope that this is giving you a picture of what it would be like to move over the holidays and some of the things to keep in the back of your mind. Even if you already knew these are great reminders for you. And if it's the first time you're hearing some of this, well, then I'm glad we took this time together to talk about moving over the holidays and why it might just be right for you. All right, we'll catch up with you next week. This is Ron Wojciechowski for the Black Hole of Real Estate.